Faulty whistles. It was a very early morning on Sodor, and the sun was just beginning to light up the sky. Most people were still asleep, but one of the engines was up and about. Peter Sam had been hard at work right through the night, taking wagons to Duncan, who was waiting for him at the junction. Duncan was building up steam while he waited for Peter Sam to bring the rest of his load. He had an important job to do. He was going to take the wagons as usual, but today he had another passenger. He was taking the new organ to Strawberry Grove School. The headmaster, Mr. Hastings, was going with him to make sure that it got there safely. Peter Sam was nearly at the junction when he went under a low tree branch at the side of the track. Bump! The branch knocked Peter Sam's whistle off. "Bother!" said Peter Sam. "I can't run on the tracks without my whistle. It wouldn't be safe." Duncan agreed with him. "That's right," he said. "An engine has to have his whistle. It's the whistle that makes the engine." And just to prove it, he let off a big blast of his own whistle. He was very proud of it. Peep! Peter Sam and the other engines didn't take any notice. They didn't think Duncan was very helpful, so they ignored him. "Humph!" said Duncan, and as soon as his wagons were loaded, off he puffed. He was in a bit of a huff. Duncan steamed along by the fields and woods. He was still in a bit of a huff. "The others are just jealous of my new whistle," he said. "They know it's the best one of all." And just to prove it, he whistled at some sheep. Peep! But the sheep didn't take any notice of him. They were too busy eating grass. "Bah!" said Duncan. "Silly sheep! I'll whistle much louder next time." Elizabeth the lorry was waiting at the level crossing with a big ball in her box. When Duncan saw them, he whistled as loudly as he could. Peep! Moo! said the bull. "Stop making that noise, Duncan," said Elizabeth. Duncan didn't say anything. "I don't care if Elizabeth and the others don't like my whistle," said Duncan. "It's going to be the loudest on the whole island." Duncan was so pleased with himself that he didn't notice that his whistle was coming loose. It wobbled around from side to side. When he rounded a corner and saw Terence the tractor working in the field, he was very pleased. "He'll get my loudest and longest whistle yet," he said. Duncan blew as hard as he could, and the wobbly whistle shot up into the air like a little rocket. Duncan stopped. "It's my whistle," he told his driver. "I blew it and it flew up into the air." Duncan's driver and fireman looked for the whistle. So did Terence's driver, and so did Headmaster Hastings. They looked everywhere, but the whistle was nowhere to be seen. "We're stuck now," said Duncan's driver. "We can't move along the track without a whistle. It's not safe." No one knew quite what to do, until Headmaster Hastings had an idea. "Leave it to me," he said. "I know how we can let people know that we're coming." Can you guess what he did? Yes! Every time Duncan needed to whistle, Headmaster Hastings played a note on the big school organ. Duncan didn't make another sound for the rest of the day, but Headmaster Hastings did. When Duncan came to a crossing, Headmaster Hastings tooted on the organ. Toot! When Duncan stopped at a station, Headmaster Hastings tooted the organ. Toot! When Duncan came into the sidings, Headmaster Hastings tooted to warn people. Toot! The organ worked just as well as a whistle, though Duncan didn't think so, of course. Duncan did all his deliveries, but he was much quieter than usual. He didn't like having an organ toot instead of a whistle. When he steamed back to the junction, Rusty, Renes, Scarlowie and Peter Sam were waiting for him. Poor Duncan felt silly when Headmaster Hastings played the organ again. Toot! Rusty laughed. Look, he said, it's Duncan, the musical engine. Let's whistle along with him, said Rheneas. Yes, let's, said Skarloey. Toot, toot! Come on, Peter Sam, you can join in. Peter Sam had a shiny new whistle by now, but he didn't blow it. He felt sorry for Duncan. You did really well to do all your work without a whistle, Duncan, he said. That made Duncan feel a little bit more cheerful. Do you really think so, Peter Sam? He asked. Yes, I do, said Peter Sam. You know, it's not the whistle that makes the engine, it's the engine that makes the whistle. Hold the organ, said Headmaster Hastings, and he played an extra loud toot. That made all the engines laugh and laugh, even Duncan.